I'll start by showing what happened last year when I did this video. This year the only horse who had no great issues with was Bow Saint, who horse did quite well, coming 4th place, but of course didn't win. But Miller Time's win has made a major change to the trends, and I'll explain that now, and possibly the most major trend that everyone talks about since Gay Trip. Basically saying that the horse didn't pass this, it won't win. I think now that's gone. It's not that it's not an important trend, but it's not, say, what I call an elimination trend, as if you don't pass this, you don't win. I think that is now no longer the case. So this is the first trend. I have to admit I didn't realise when I started doing this, it was a few days back, that the actual next stage of the clearances was the next day. So a number of horses here are actually not running. The only one I can see here is shouldn't be a 7-year-old or 13-year-old. No 7-year-old has been placed since Black Secret in 1971, and Bogscar in 1940 is the last 7-year-old to win the race, and the last 13-year-old to be placed. It's actually the only time been to a Grand National. That was Vic's Canvas coming placed in 2016. To find the last 13-year-old to win the race, you have to go all the way back to Sergeant Cecil in 1923. So you can see here, the only 13-year-old out is actually Black Lion. I backed him actually when he won quite well for 5 years ago. Look, he might win actually with jumping the third last, but in the end he came 4th. Well, no okay over the race, but really he's past his best. The other was to put that in on runner, but the other 4 horses here for Cocoa Beach, Noble Yates, and 4 back all 7-year-olds, and really I just cannot see them winning at all, or even frankly being placed. So this is a trend that has changed. When Gay Trip won in 1970, he had never won at 3 miles under rules. And if you know what it means under rules, it means not counting point-to-point ones. And ever since then, because he won what used to be those days called a Mackerson Gold Cup, there was always garbage, and it was garbage in those days, of you need a 2.5 miler to win the race. And you basically hunt around the first circuit, use that tactical speed on the second circuit. And also later on, a form at a shorter distance is actually important for Grand National. You don't want just a plodder. But you still need a stamina, and this garbage was exposed in 1992 even, when I had a couple of books on how to beat Grand National, when they both were actually well thought out, and one of them stating that actually basically they're saying then that every winner since Gay Trip had won at 3 miles or longer, and we're saying, well, this was rubbish about you needing a 2.5 miler was I'm saying it was rubbish then. It was rubbish continuously after that. The time it changed was all the way into 2016 when Rule the World, and the only time I ever went to the race, as I said, was a maiden amazingly, and won the race and never won at 3 miles or longer. And it maybe this is a one-off. It's very strange to watch Rule the World, the maiden chaser. Well, it's almost certainly unique, and quite astonishing in fact. But then Miller Times won last year, and again hadn't won at 3 miles or more. Now, I'll ask the question is, why has this changed? And this is now 2 times in 5 years. It's not in 6 years, of course. 2016, 2021, and 2020, of course, because of COVID not taking place. There's only been 5 renewals. Well, there's a debate here. There's also a debate, and I actually must say at this point that technically, under the current distance setup, basically the BHAUs, when Rewarder has lost a furlong who won in 2001, lost a furlong off his longest distance win from 3 miles to 2 miles 7. This is due to a change of measurements rather than anything else. Now why I never count with Rewarder is I never ever take the 2001 Grand National into account. I pretend it didn't exist. I was thinking earlier today, the 2001 Grand National race itself, it's like when I went to date with a woman to Kelso Racecourse a few years ago, where it started okay, and by the end you're just praying it finished. It was an appallingly heavy ground. That's not actually why I discount it. It's because 2 horses there, Paddy's Return and Edmund. I came out him first time out, Paddy's Return, having already unseated, ducked across. I took out about 7 horses out of the race. And then later on I think it was the third of one of the ditches on the second circuit, Edmund, having basically half refused out the chair and fallen at the same time, took another 3 horses out by ducking across there. And with 10 other horses out, carried out by 2 loose horses, I think the race itself just should be just thrown to the flames in effect. So I never ever take into account. So technically, when Rewarder also didn't win at 3 miles under rules since Gay Trip, he now winning at 2 miles 7, although it would have been a 3 mile hurdle race he won, but they're saying the measurements have changed now, and so I'll see if I can bring up one difference in Racing Post, why you see his form from a few years ago, before measurement change came in, where it says 3 miles, to now where it says 2 miles 7. I say I'd never ever take the race into account anyway, I'll just say it doesn't exist. So what's the difference? I don't know. Well, Grand National technically now is 4 miles. Grand National now technically is 4 miles 2 furlongs instead of 4 miles and a half. 1 furlong that is just the race is shorter, because the BHA felt that jockeys and the horses probably getting too excited to go into a first fence, maybe going too quickly, and push the start a furlong away from the crowd with all the noise, and put it nearer the fence, and therefore instead of being 4 miles 4 furlongs, now 4 miles 3 furlongs. And there's a measurement change, where we used to be to measure race distances from a line down the middle of a course, and then they changed it towards the inside rail, and we're going to actually count, of course, at Aintree being so wide that actually made such a measurement difference. We lost a furlong race anyway, but actually, although it says 4 miles, it used to be 4 miles 4 furlongs, now it's 4 miles 2 furlongs. Technically, one of those furlongs is just a measurement difference, and actually, the race is only a furlong shorter. So a furlong shorter, it's not increased the chance of a horse who's not run at 3 miles before winning the race. It's because it's a shorter race, simply as that. And whether the change of fences making it easier, possibly, as the fences now are, well, you can always improve fences to an extent. Has that made it easier for horses not running 3 miles or more? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know the answer to that. But it's clear that you cannot now say the horse haven't run at 3 miles. Basically cannot win the race, because they can. They have done 2016 and 2021, as I said, discounting Wedmore Order. But I started to look at another way of doing this, and this is why I've added in, apart from the first or second at 3 miles, and that would put those 2 horses back in again, Rule of the World and Miller Times. I'm also going to voices post Star Salmon of 11.4 furlongs or above, or no figure. A lot of horses, if you look at Grand National Wins, don't have a figure, or more common for national horses than flat, but the vast majority have a figure of 11.4 or above, or are saying no figure. The exceptions are slightly surprisingly to Earth Summit, who actually won the Scottish and Rose Grand National. He's a figure of 9.7. Number 6 Valverde on 10.1, and the Rose Encore on a figure of 8.3. But everyone else has a figure of 11.4 or above. And so I'll just eliminate anyone who hasn't, as it shortens the field down. Again, I make a note of Potter's Corner, slightly strange with a figure of 8.8 furlongs, as he clearly won the Welsh Grand National, and I think a Midlands Grand National, he clearly does stay. But we have situations like with dosage figures, which I find interesting. They have that controversial figure in set of stamina figures in horse racing, more used for flat racing. Des Dawkins has a figure of 3.00, puts him basically as a flat horse. It's never meant a flat horse. Possibly, I would find my flat a high figure for 2,000 guineas winner. Usually, one lower is more horse with more stamina. While Court of Star, obviously another great horse of the later period. Possibly, my always best and favourite horse would be Des Dawkins, but I think Court of Star's slightly better record overall than Des Dawkins has. Looking for the best two horses, I think, jumped the last 40 years and sort of as stayers. Has a figure, I can't remember, I did look it up, but it was about 0.3 or 0.4, a normal last hunt figure. Des Dawkins, a very strange figure, which basically was for a flat horse. So you can have situations, I make notes where I find horses failing by not very much. Pink Eye Pedro, for example, only fails the first or second of a 3 mile figure by half a furlong, so make a note of that. And Potter's Corner fails the stamina figure I'm saying that my note there is very strange. By the way, every horse that actually survives has actually won at 3 miles or above. We got to the end of it, none of them any fails at all. All of them won at least 3 miles. So it still actually has made no difference in a way to that. As I said earlier on, you don't particularly want a plodder. And I kept this trend from last year, that they must have won a chase or a hurdle at 2.5 miles or shorter. Here again, horse who fails at a cloth cappy as they did last year as well, and surprisingly, same situation, of half filling too long. So we've got new horses failing. It's the only one who fails by a small margin. And so we now have less horses. And I say you want some bit of class, a bit of a tactical speed there. And remember, this is for win only, right? Not for placed horses. But I may well get a place horse staying on. That's always going to be the case. But this is not what this video is doing. And you need some sort of tactical speed at the end of the race as well as the stamina. Now this, I have to say, depends on the definition of what a stiff chase track is. And I've listed my 15 fences race courses here. I now eliminate national courses of stiff track. I used to be the only course in the country where actually, I used to in the old days, before they changed the fence configuration, I had to discount any fours or unseated over national fences unless the race itself I was looking at was being run over national fences. For example, looking at the King George VI chase and a horse had fallen in the Grand National, I would ignore that fall completely because it was in the Grand National. The only time we're taking into account is either it was, say, the Beecher chase or the Grand National or Fox Hunters or Aintree, any of the fences, races over the Aintree fences. That's not the case now. I think there's an argument, and I'm not, and I may think there may be a good pointer to this as well. It's the easiest fences now in the country. The mile-make course is still counted stiff, so the mile-make course is still counted. Obviously, this is only other fences. Obviously, hurdles, falls, I just think not completely is irrelevant for this. And so here you go. You've got Ascot, Aintree, Cheltenham, Chepstow, Haydock, Kempton, Newby, Newcastle, Sandown in this country, Ferrières, Leopardstown, Nason, Punchdown in Ireland, and Auteuil in France. I don't know enough about any other French courses, whether they're stiff or not. There's debates about some of them. I mean, some of them can be stiff, stamina type tracks, but fences can be easy. It's the old pretty close Toaster race course could be. You need stamina to win at Toaster, but it wasn't in a stiff jumping track. But these are a list of 15 here. I've got a list of these ones I use, and so you're looking at, you want two things here. First, three in a stiff chase track at 3 miles and above, even though I said the Grand National isn't itself, and I think it's not stiff track anymore. I still want stiff track form. I always want that, but still here I think you want some top three in a chase at a stiff track, I said at 3 miles and above, and also a win at one, at least one, obviously, or two or more second places. And that takes a number of other horses out. And the fifth one, you want a horse who's not too inexperienced, but not been around too long, and therefore you want a horse with some margins here between 9 and 27 chases, and also getting all races, 17 to 35. It includes all races, can include flat races as well. There's not a huge amount left who ran on the turf or weather flat, and tends to be more national bred horses running Grand National these days, but still some will have that. Hurdle and also hurdles and national hunt flat racing. So it's 9 to 27 chases, 17 to 35 of all types. Annabelle Fly, it passes, but would fail to run again. He's actually had 35 total runs, so if he had, it's unlikely I think to be running before Grand National. If he did, he would fail. Desirable, I can't remember which way it fails by one. It's only just for us to make a note of that horse fails by one as the Secret Reprieve. Potts Corner Mint also on 35. Fails already at a minute because of the stamina figure. I'm just making a note, it's a very strange figure for a horse's stamina, so maybe not enough to knock a horse out for that. You might want to just take another look at that, maybe thinking maybe that's one off, his stamina figure. And he's on 35, and again, if he has one more race, he would fail. Here we have max 10% of either falls, unseated, refused, ran out in rules chases, and again, I just count point to point form. Now, there's a debate here whether to count point to point falls or not. Actually, I didn't just ignore point to point form for anything. So really, is a horse falling on point to point? I don't ignore it, but he may be, if you see the form guide, you see this horse was also falling on point to point as well. He might be a bit sceptical about the horse, but always also would discount bad luck here. There's a horse here, and I'll have to tell this way, a Larry, who actually would have failed that trend if I didn't discount the fact that I always look for racing bus comments in running. I think the horse might fail this trend. You can see if there's anything unlucky, and that's what the racing ended up. Such a bizarre race. That comments in running, there was a loose horse, and he knocked him over at the final fence, and you're unseated, but that was only because the loose horse hit him, basically, and gave the jockey no hope of staying on. So I was saying it to that, so anything but a brought down and never taken into account either. Well, also knocking out horses more horses out. I know Grand National's easier fences than it used to be, but really still, you're taking a risk if you're backing a dodgy jumper in this race. And again here, slight change, because I think Miller Times had a win in a slightly lower sized race, so I think it's come a little bit, trend has changed here. But anyway, won 31 a race, or second or better in a 22 runner chase, and any races 14 runners, and again the same second and 22 runner chase. It's just the Grand National maximum 40 field, where you might have one or two non-runners, but you really don't want a horse who's, I think, who's going around winning a 9-runner fields all his or her career, and really that's not. So that's important for this. Both Fiddleroof and Farclas technically slightly fail it by one, but I'll note that it's only a marginal fail for those two, so it's not. Is it going to make a real difference? I don't know. That's why I made a note that of other fail. They only just failed that. Backlash has never won a 14-runner race or longer. Same Mac Totty has a second fail, marginally. And also discount any horse run badly over national fences. Boasate and also a Farclas. Both of them, I think Farclas in 5th. Boasate was 4th, Farclas was about 5th. About somewhere behind the 20, beaten about 27 lengths, I think. Something like Boasate, and the Farclas a bit further. But in 4th and 5th, they didn't run a bad race. And I think so left them and not marked, giving them an issue there. And this is around about it, actually. As I here, I made some notes here, just of horses who haven't had an issue so far. I make notes of what issues they may have. Here we've got a list here. Now, the important thing here is Miller Times and Delta Work. This was done before Miller Times it's probably not going to be top weight, but it depends. Well, it depends. The question probably wouldn't actually, but many times affect your top weight. 1988, maximum difference in the winner and the bottom weight has been £21, and it depends what weight these horses carry. But because we don't know who the bottom weight's going to be yet, because there's quite a lot of horses left in. It's not like the old days where a lot like the handicap. You might see a 10-stone bottom weight. I don't know. So this is more towards the end of it. You want to be sceptical. Anyone with more £21 off a bottom weight, if it was a 10-stone bottom weight, you're looking at 11 stone 8 or above, that would fail it. And certainly many times is likely to be that weight, possibly Delta work, but it depends on what bottom weight is. If the bottom is 10.5 stone, then no one fails it. It just depends what it is, but that is an issue there for many times that work. But even so, as a heavyweight, I think we're carrying so concerned. Any second now, I've got issues with horses jumping. One Wild Thread is only a novice. My last novice to win was, well, obviously World as a maiden chaser. You're going back to Mr. Watt back in the late 50s, before Rule of the World. I did think Lord Ganleen was a novice actually for years. He was a 97 winner, and he didn't win in Britain, in fact. But it was very confusing. I looked it up. I found out eventually he had wins in New Zealand. He came from New Zealand, and when I found out he had a couple of wins there, one must have been a chase. And very strange because the Racing Post isn't anything on New Zealand Form, a website, and it's obviously possible to find anything out. And I in the end looked up the date of what I think a race he was going to run in. I'm actually I can't remember where it was now. His first run in Britain. Well, it was going to be, was a non-runner. And there's two papers. It was the Liverpool Echo and I can't remember, Daily Mirror. And Liverpool Echo had him having 6 runs before, including last time out win. And the Daily Mirror form said he had none. So Daily Mirror form just taking British racing into account, and Daily Echo had taken New Zealand racing into account. Or else Daily Echo or Liverpool Echo made a mistake. But I suspect probably was the Liverpool Echo had used his New Zealand form there. I don't know. But it's definitely their 6 runs down in their paper, while Daily Mirror had none. But I would say he won well enough last year, but I'm not sure he stayed, to be honest. Same with Far Class, we've got later on both for the same issue. Fiddling with does not actually have a stiff win, and no single win longer than 3. Sorry, I did put, we knocked him out. I was saying no qualifier has not won a 3 miles. Fiddling with technically isn't a qualifier, only is a marginal fail, but he hasn't got a stiff win, and no win longer than 2.5 miles. I'm sceptical whether he'll stay himself. Chatham Street Live will quicker have gone the worstest form. He's very good and heavy, very good, good and soft, but not quite as good and soft, and it goes to good to soft, good to yielding, and if you don't know what yielding is, the hour's equivalent of good to soft, and then good ground, and the good ground is terrible. Basically, if it's not soft ground, whatever you do, I just cannot see you back in Chatham, lads, because the just horse would have no hope whatsoever. Of the others court made, only 9 chase ones, only just qualifies. One less chase one horse wouldn't. No mare's won it since 51, although some have been placed. Magical Light was placed, I think, 2017. Dubacilla was placed in 94. Ebony Jane was placed in 93. The fact no mare's won it since 51, I don't think a huge amount have entered, really. So I think it's not a massive negative. Certainly wouldn't put you off back in court made. Jurassic Counter has a poor run form since he had a Ladbrokes Gold Cup, the old Hennessy win. But I think it was 2019. Only 10 chases, so only doesn't qualify by much. And as well as 1-4 under rules, also 2 point-to-point falls. So as you're saying about point-to-point falls, I'm sceptical about his jumping. And the both as I said, first ones again, just technically qualified, but no wins since December 2017, and was pulled up in this last year. Now, the reason he qualifies under the one badly in the last offences rule is because he ran well in it before. He has actually won where he was 4th, I think it was 2019, 4th 2018 and 5th 2019. But I think he's on a downgrade and too much. Of the others, I mentioned Cloth Cap. I said he actually has a fail, but only slight fail. There's a debate about Cloth Cap's one last year. He was well supported, and I normally have a horse who put up in the Grand National. I'd say I wouldn't have one of the Grand National offences. I'd say, well, that's it. You're eliminated. But it was an issue of a horse, in fact. Had a respiratory noise. It was going pretty well actually, going about 4 or 5 out, and was looking probably set for a place, and not sure he'd have won. And suddenly, just improving 2 fences, effectively pulled up. And in fact, it was clear issue of the horse's breathing. So although Cloth technically just about fails this time round, not by much, so it certainly he may be able to discount that run. It's debatable whether he did. I mean, I'm a more athlete. I left him alone in the 95 Grand National, and he shouldn't have been on my list of horses because he'd run and fallen in the 93 Grand National, and I felt he'd run in the race. Well, he hadn't really. he sort of, I think whoever jockey was trying to pull him up in 93 and he fell. I'm not quite sure what happened when I said, well, he's running it. Well, he hadn't run in it. And in fact, I decided when I see my business ran in the 99 Gold Cup, I decided, well, it was carried out in 98, and I didn't, at that point, you didn't really want a horse who ran in the Gold Cup before, but tended not to win. And I said, well, let's eliminate that way. So I put some money in him, and of course, he won at 16-1. Never messed on Epides, again, only 9 chases, only 17 career runs. So, first passes both, but literally by a bare margin. Anything less experienced then would be out. Again, a mare, but as I'm saying, that still might not be that much of a negative. Domendil, I like the horse actually, in fact, and I don't have any issues with him, apart from that he may not get in the race. He's, I think, number 46 now after the last round of horses being withdrawn, so he's a fair chance of getting in, but I'm not convinced he will. And the longer further down you go with these horses, the more likely we're not going to get in, clearly, and so from him down, I think it's unlikely anyone will get in fact. So I like the horse, I've got a few quid on him at a high price on Betfair, but if he gets in, he may not get in. Then he got Schoolboy Hours, only 1 chase, 1 hurdle win, so not many wins in his career. I pulled up last time at the Cheltenham Festival after a horrendous mistake. I think Warren Kim Ewan made an awful mistake, and was jockey that pulled him up. Back of a Lashes non-runner, the only one of my possible either on the shortlist horses or marginal fails to be on the shortlist horses was actually pulled up at the last declarance stage. Mac Totty further couple marginally, but I'm still a bit sceptical about him. Larry was pulled up last time out at the Cheltenham Festival. I'm still picking up Pedro, but you get to Larry pick up Pedro, back of a Lash, and Mac Totty probably, really, when they're still in the race. So really, for fact, that third column on the right, I think you can easily ignore, because I don't think we'll get in. Well, thanks for listening. Good luck with your selections.